Good morning. Today is Thursday, the third day of Nisan, April 11th. Don't forget to say the Nasi and thank our Balkaira. Beautiful job. Thank you, Elio. Beautiful minyan, Shekayach, David. Now, jumping into today's Tanya, today's lesson, I want to go backwards today. I want to do the takeaway. So powerful. And then we'll start from the beginning. It's a little unusual, but that's okay, right? The takeaway for today is you could perform an act because that's how you were trained. But then you could perform an act because you want to fulfill God's will and desire. All it takes is a small, conscious meditation on your love and fear of Hashem. Doing the same exact thing. I asked one of my kids, I like being vague because I don't want you to pick on them and say, oh, I heard about you. I said, what do you think of when you daven? He says, I don't know. I just say the words. I try to just say the words. So when you're younger, it's a struggle just to read. I said, oh, that's great. But when you take it to the next level, you're going to think about what the davening means. Shem Echad, Ma'idem Anachnu Lach, all these concepts that we've been learning. So let's go back to the beginning. In today's lesson, Torah mitzvah is performed non-consciously, in parentheses, by rote, which means you do them just, from yid, you have to get up, you have to daven, you have to run to work. But even if not for an ulterior purpose, meaning you don't do it because somebody asked you to do it, or you don't do it because you feel guilty, doing it for the mitzvah of davening, but you're not having kavanah, does not descend on high. It's a very serious statement. Serving Hashem consciously, for Hashem's sake, lishma, for the purpose of Hashem, when one feels for Him, just as fulfilling the wish of a fellow is motivated by one's care for them. So if somebody asks you to do the favor, you don't know this guy, like, I don't know who you are, but okay, fine, here. Can I sit? A guest comes, he says, do you mind if I sit here? Sure, fine. But if it's a friend and he says, can I sit here? Of course, I'm happy to. Do me a favor, can you grab me a cup of water? You're going over, sure, a box of tissues, of course. You're happy to do a friend a favor. So when we put in an effort to do Hashem's mitzvah, it's because out of the love for Hashem, it takes our mitzvah not as an obligation, something that we have to do, but something that we want to do and a way to connect in the deepest possible way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Alter Rebbe now proceeds to amplify his previous statement. And by the way, I think it's important to take a moment. Look at this book, this little book here. This is the Tanya, the original Tanya. So, we're talking esoteric ideas, Atzilus, Bria, where your mitzvahs go up to based on Kavan and this and that. How do I say this word? I don't doubt that when somebody opens up the Tanya, they go, I can't, that's not for me. If you open up one of these pages, when we learn it and I'm very grateful for the Chayenu, page 58, that it gives us the ability for, first of all, it sprinkles in a little explanation before, the takeaway at the end, sometimes in between, and also a pretty decent translation. Although some may feel, we have actually a guest who is here on Shabbos, Yankee Hack, the Chassan. Yankee actually is writing his own explanation and translation on the Tanya. We have some samples of the first Perek, which we're going to get to at some point. Maybe when we start over, I have plenty of copies so everybody could join in. But again, I'm just sharing some ideas and feelings. The Alter Rebbe now proceeds to amplify his previous statement. Remember yesterday we said, what was the last thing we said yesterday? That doing a mitzvah without ahava and yira is like what? Who remembers? A bird without its wings. It's a cute little thing. I mean, there are some birds without wings. They pop around, they jump a little bit. But if they can't soar in the sky, so the opposite, instead of looking at it from the negative perspective, a bird with wings, look how majestic that looks. Look how beautiful and glorious our mitzvahs can soar up to Shamayim, spiritually high. I know, afilu ein im ein oisek sheloi lishma mamish shomezei pniya chas v'shalom. This inability of a person who might, this inability of one's divine service to ascend to the spheres which we talked about, Atzilus, Bria, Tzirna, again, myriads and myriads of levels, millions and billions and trillions of levels within each world. So if a person doesn't have the ability, you could barely read the words, you're just struggling just to daven. It applies not only where one's motive for engaging in Torah mitzvahs is actually shaloi lishma, not for its own sake, meaning for some ulterior motive, heaven forbid, in which case one is actually serving himself and not God. This is like chas v'shalom, avodah zarah. If I'm doing it for myself and I feel good, let's use learning Torah, for example. You're not learning it because you're doing it for the mitzvah. You're learning it because you want to show people how much you know. It makes you feel good. Your ego is affected. Your pride is soaring. That's not why we learn Torah. Now, sometimes you could be proud of the accomplishment of doing a siyum, or how much you know, and you're able to give it over to someone else, whatever it may be. But the initial reason why we learn Torah, it's Hashem. It's a gift from Hashem. And also, I like to think about davening. Also, we're not doing it because somebody convinced us to do it, and that's why we're doing it. We're davening because we want to embrace Hashem. We want to speak to Hashem. So, in which case, that tefillah or that mitzvah cannot ascend. It also applies even as the verse. I want to just stop for a second. There's a famous idea that's called like this. Gemara says, if somebody learns without the right intentions, it will lead to learning or doing a mitzvah with the right intentions. Right? So if you chop somebody and you say, listen, sir, you're Jewish, we have to put on tefillin. Or here's a piece of matzah, it's Erev Pesach. Here's a piece of matzah. The guy's like, what's that? It's matzah, you're Jewish, you got to eat it after a certain time on Monday night, April 22nd, to fulfill the biblical commandment. He's like, all right, whatever, it's a cracker, it's pretty tasteless, but I'll do it for you. So he's not having the right intentions, not because he's doing something wrong, because he doesn't know. So 1 year he eats the matzah. The next year he's like, you know what, it was very interesting. And I don't know, I was curious, so I looked it up and I read a little bit about it. And it's a tradition that goes all the way back thousands of years to our ancestors. He says, next year I want to try to do it right. So I'm adding the 4 cups of wine and a little maror. And then by the 4th or 5th or 6th year, he's already doing a whole seder. And then he's starting to daven every day and put on tefillin. So because he did something which might not have necessarily been done the right way with the right intentions, what happened? It leads to doing the same thing and much more with the right intention. So I think that's very important to note. So we don't feel bad if we end up davening without kavanah. Still doing, as we mentioned a few days ago, maybe last week, we mentioned that fulfilling the mitzvah, even without kavanah, is still fulfilling the mitzvah. Okay, so it's not with the wings. It's not reaching the highest possible level, but we still have to do it. Their fear of me was like commandments of man done by rote. It's like a king or your boss or somebody telling you this is what you have to do. A cop pulls up behind you. What are you going to do, right? You're going to slow down. A minute ago, you were speeding. You were like, carefree. You're in a convertible. You're having a blast. Suddenly a cop pulls up. You're moving. Please mute your phone. Thank you. Pedos, Chamas, Hergel, Shehurgal, Vikatnusoi, meaning that one serves Hashem. When a person does it by rote, he serves it out of habit acquired in his youth. From the time he's a little kid, he's told, say a bracha on the candy. You have to say Maidani. You have to wash your hands before you eat. All this kind of stuff. He's been trained and taught by his father and teacher to serve God and fear him. But he doesn't do it for the sake of heaven. He does it because that's what he was taught. It's impossible to serve Hashem truly, lishma, without arousing one's natural love and fear, at least. Okay, so obviously we got to work. It takes some effort. But what does he do? He has to bring them out from the hidden recesses of his heart to reveal the love of Hashem. He has to reveal the love and the awe and the fear of Hashem that he has in his heart, at least his mind, to think about them somewhat. Just as one does something for his fellow. If somebody says, hey, can you do me a favor on that? I don't know you. I'm like, no, thanks. I'm not going to do it. Oh, you're my friend? I know the guy? Of course, I'm happy to do it. I'm going that way anyway. Sure, I'm happy to do it. What else do you need? You need me to pick something up on the way back? Whatever it is. If somebody loves a person, or the opposite, if somebody fears a person, I better be on time. My boss is going to be angry. I might get fired, right? Then you'll do it. So too, we have to think about it. Hashem created the world. We have so much appreciation for him and thanks for him. That allows us to bring out the love. And also the opposite, maybe if we don't do it, not that we're going to get punished. But if you play with a knife, you get cut. You play with fire, you get burned. And if you don't, if you're not making a keli, if you're not making the vessel for the blessing, then you might not get it. So instead of worrying about being punished, maybe you're not going to get as much as you could have gotten for the good. And once the person remembers, so until he remembers and he arouses the love and fear to some degree, he thinks about Hashem and the greatness of Hashem in his mind and in his thought and in the different levels of his heart. At least if he cannot arouse these emotions openly in his heart, at least somewhat he works on it by saying, thank you, Hashem. And you know what? I don't want to upset Hashem in any way. So one who observes the mitzvahs out of habit, however, is lacking even this minimal arousal of love, which cannot be described as serving Hashem for his sake, even though his performance is impelled by no ulterior motive. So even though he's doing it not for selfish reasons or for guilt reasons, but if he's not working up some kind of a basic love and fear of Hashem, he's just going through the motion. Sometimes we do that, guys. We're davening, we're half asleep. We just don't want to miss it. We have a good track record. We haven't missed minyan in a month, whatever it might be. Just a simple love, the arousal of love alone, without the arousal of at least the lower level, the lower level of fear of Hashem, the fachos. A person has to have at least a little bit of love and fear of Hashem when he does a mitzvah, when he davens. Otherwise, it's not called service, as we're going to explain later. So you're doing the exact same thing. It's like if you decide you're going to eat an apple. Kosher, no problem. But all you have to do is say a bracha and think, I'm eating the apple to have the energy to serve Hashem, or the morning coffee, let's say. I don't drink coffee in the morning, so I don't relate to it so much. But some people can't start the day without coffee. So it's either I need the coffee because I like it and it gives me I can't live without it, or whatever it is. Or it's, I'm drinking this coffee with a blessing and it's a tool to help me serve Hashem. So it just takes a moment, not even a full minute. It's not even a number of seconds. It's just a moment to say, thank you, Hashem, for the ability to give me this boost of energy. And with this, we thank Hashem for the beautiful day outside. Even a sprinkle of water, of rain from heavens, reminds us that, as the Baal Shem Tov said, water is a sign of blessing. We shall be blessed with the ability to love Hashem and fear Hashem and all the mitzvahs that we do, to make sure to encourage others to do so as well. Have a wonderful day and a continued good Chodesh. Don't forget to do all the things you need to do, including the Nasi. And that's it for today.